The Pokeradar is a tool that you get in the postgame, which people mostly use to chain encounters for shiny hunts. But you could also get encounters that are completely unique to the Pokeradar itself. Between my first save of Pokemon Pearl and all of my other runs of Sinnoh, I have this many hours using the Pokeradar. This will mostly be a new experience for me. And today I'll be putting these Pokemon to the test to see how much we've missed out on with them stuck in the postgame. Oh, I'm also running a hack that lets my Pokemon follow me around. Sue me. I was a bit worried at first because for a while I only got Bidoof to appear. But once I checked the shinier rustling grass, I found my first Pokeradar exclusive, Chef the Nidoran male. And oh my gosh, I love the following add-on. Little Chef is so cute! One route later, in the same manner, I pick up Apex Predator the Sentret. Probably my favorite of the common route normals. I could also go back to Lake Verity to pick up a Wobbuffet, believe it or not. But that's what we call in the business a high risk, no reward. Don't get me wrong, Wobbuffet can be great for sure, but I don't really see it helping in the early game here. You should raise more Pokemon. The more Pokemon you have, the happier you'll be. Wow, I was reading text like this when I was 7 years old. No wonder I have Pokemon brain now. In Jubilife City, Looker proves that he's the best and only international police officer. I pick up some items, have some battles where Apex really earns his name, and get ready for my first real fight against Barry. On Route 204, I could have gotten a Ralts with the Pokeradar, but even these encounters have version exclusives. Yeah, I know. But we wouldn't use it anyways, since Ralts can be found in the wild normally. Anyways, Barry didn't stand much of a chance against my Apex Predator, and Little Chef, at this point in time, has a really good matchup into Turtwig. That won't last forever, but for now, I'm not complaining. Well, actually, you know what? I will. Why is he setting up 6 withdraws? He did this in the tutorial too. Past Orberg City on Route 207, it took a few tries as usual, but eventually I find Stantler. I mess up a little bit by letting Poison Point activate, and because of that it faints. So, gym time. To be honest, I was kind of hoping the Stantler would carry in this gym, but he wouldn't have even gotten Rock Smash apparently, so whatever. I pretty much have to exclusively rely on Chef for this fight. So, for the first turn, I set up Focus Energy, which should give me a permanently boosted crit chance. Roark sets up the Stealth Rocks as predicted, and we start blasting! Okay, we need the crits to activate. But sadly, they do not activate once. Chef lands a few double kicks, and all it does is activate a potion. We take way too much damage from the Geodude, and eventually get taken out. Apex can't learn Rock Smash either, so we don't last much longer. I need to rethink my strategy. On attempt 2, Chef Jr. remains to be a Nidoran male, and Stantler actually stays in the ball. Let's call her Upscream. Upscream may not have many ways to hurt Roark's Pokemon, but she does come with Intimidate. My plan is to basically have her pave the way for Chef to do his thing. To pull this off, we need to put the enemies to sleep with Hypnosis, and spam Blear to weaken them enough so that Double Kick can do significant damage. We miss on the first attempt, giving Geodude the opportunity to set up Stealth Rocks, but thanks to the next Hypnosis landing, Chef switches in, and Focus Energy boosted Double Kicks finish him off. Onix would be even easier if it didn't land Screech, so to avoid damage, I switch back to Upscream to reset our strategy. Eventually, with the help of more Hypnosis' landing, things play out in our favor yet again. But we've taken a lot of chip damage by this point, and the Stealth Rocks aren't helping at all. Even though Upstream is low, I need to intimidate Craniados no matter what. My plan was to pivot with Apex and back to Upscream to activate another Intimidate, but thanks to the Stealth Rocks, Upscream will simply die. I'm put in a very tough position now, as Chef will in no way be bulky enough to switch in and win. I solemnly switch to Apex and make my choice from there. If Apex stays in and sacrifices himself, I could get Upscream back in for free and maybe get a Hypnosis off to live. I could cut my losses and switch back right now, keeping Apex alive while losing Upscream during the switch, but Intimidate is so good that it's worth the risk. Apex goes down fighting like a true champion, and Upscream returns for Intimidate number 2. We attempt to land Hypnosis, and we miss. Maybe I should have just cut my losses, but either way, with the weight of the run on Chef's little back, he uses Double Kick and barely doesn't kill. Craniados charges forward with Headbutt, and we do live after all. Poison Point activates, getting Roark to use his potion, but it doesn't matter since we're faster, and Chef double kicks the Craniados one last time to get the win. In remorseful triumph, Chef evolves following the conclusion of the match. The weight of 2 fallen allies is carried with him, but his new evolved body holds the strength to bear it. For now. If I could redo that fight, I would play it so differently. For starters, I'd probably just keep Apex alive, but more importantly, I'd probably go back to pick up the Wobbuffet that I just now remembered. Well, better late than never. Good to have you on, Robe. And over on the northern part of Route 204, we can acquire Headman the Sunkern, with Clown the Mareep following suit in Valley Windworks. See? We're so back! Commander Mars is typically incredibly daunting in the early game, but once Clown handily takes out her Zubat, I get a little cheesy. Thing is, even though her Perically has a super effective attack into Robe, her HP is so insane that counter is 99% safe to take them out. The other 1% is when they crit at the wrong time, but hey, we would never need to worry about something like that. More open areas bring me more unique encounters. After getting through Eterna Forest, on the northern part of Route 205, I run into Trudge the Slowpoke. If I had searched in the southern area before the forest, my encounter would have been Hoppip, so that wasn't happening. Back in the forest with Cheryl no longer threatening to kill my encounters, Animal the Nincada joins the party as well. Honestly, I would like to use Shed Ninja in a run at some point, but I think it'd heavily take away from the other Mons, so not today. Before entering the gym, Eterna City gives us access to a huge early game buff. Normally this isn't too big of a deal, but it really helps out my niche team. Specifically, I'm looking for the Sunstone so that Headman has a chance at doing literally anything. A Moonstone would be nice too, but I want to delay that as long as I can, so Chef can still learn moves. Ironically, in the underground, I find a Thunderstone, Moonstone, Leafstone, and a second Moonstone long before a Sunstone. So long before that I actually ran out of digging spots. Yeah, these are apparently another daily event. Sure, you could get more to spawn by planting spheres in the ground and waiting for them to grow, but I've exhausted all the spots I could today, so no Sunstone yet. But it's not like I planned on using the Headman for the gym anyways. It was always more of a morale thing. That's because Animal, after evolving, solos the entire gym. I was a little worried that Fury Cutter, Animal's best move, would let me down. In the gym fights, it missed, I'm not kidding, 1/3 of the time. But Animal doesn't let me down here, and somehow lands his 95% accurate move every time. What a concept! Jupiter is typically a threat, just as Gardenia, but by leading with Chef to knock out the Zubat and chip away at the Skunk Tank, Robe is fairly safe to finish up the job with counter. Night Slash's higher crit rate worried me, and that's why I kept Clown the Flaffy safe in the back. She was the only one who could have possibly saved the day if things went wrong with Robe, but thankfully it didn't come to that. It's now the next day of recording, so I get to return to the mines. My planted orbs did invite a few more digging spots, but none of which had any Sunstones. At least I got another Leafstone, double armor fossils, and another Moonstone. Just kidding. When all hope was lost, I finally found a Sunstone. I was beginning to think that they didn't exist. But now Headman is capable of evolving, and the run is saved. Down in on Route 206, under the bike path, we pick up our 7th and final notable encounter for a while. Unfortunately, Mentalist the Baltoy won't be great for the next gym, but I'm not complaining. Now, on Route 208, another Pokemon awaits us. I said Mentalist would be the last notable encounter for a while, and it wasn't a lie. While I appreciate the gimmick that Robe brings to the team, Rugrat the Smeargles will be too much setup for my brain. If you see Rugrat being used, then you'll know that the run has gone off the deep end. But I'm not gonna lie, the third gym made me feel like that deep end was imminent. Chef was my check into Fantina's Duskull, because I didn't plan on using him anywhere else. And while my original plan was to poison her with Poison Sting, I figured the Thief TM would be better damage overall. If it weren't for the Will-O-Wisp burn, then that would have been true. What ended up happening was a series of haphazard switches, which eventually led to the Duskull's death, but not before Trudge and Chef took massive damage. It was actually up to the Headman to win by healing everything off with Leech Seed and Mega Drain. I guess that Sunstone grind was necessary. The Haunter here runs physical moves, so I wasn't too worried about switching in Clown. Of course, a crit quickly undoes that confidence, and after dodging another one, getting a para with Static was the only thing we could end up doing. Haunter is way more touchy than Duskull, especially thanks to the Confuse Ray. But Chef pivots in to absorb Hypnosis thanks to the burn, and heals back up a little bit, so things work out just as well. At this point of the game, I realized that the opponents are beginning to do way more damage to me than I'd like, so I knew I needed Headman to already be out and healthy for Miss Magius's entrance. Otherwise, there would be a casualty. We make it work, and when she does appear, I use Leech Seed as usual, which, in hindsight, may not have been worth it. Fortunately, Headman at least powers through the Confuse Ray and avoids the self-hit. But once she does, I realize that the true play I need is for Grass Whistle to land and to put the bougie ghost to sleep. She's spamming Shadow Ball, and a Mirror Coat from Robe is my only shot here. Shadow Ball fires off, and surprisingly does less than half. But of course, her special defense falls by 1 stage. There's only 1 chance at sleep here, and Headman lands asleep! Robe switches in while she can, and I consider setting up a safeguard to avoid any confusions, but opt to the Mirror Coat spam because I felt like they'd prioritize damage. And that was a great call because that's exactly what they do. Robe eats a single Shadow Ball, and even though our special defense drops again, Mirror Coat seals the deal. That fight was incredibly sloppy on my part, and I'm kinda glad I'm realizing that now because I don't think the rest of the game will be nearly as forgiving. Aside from a quick and easy fight against Barry, there isn't much standing in our way to the Veilstone Gym. However, because nothing was standing in our way of walking past it, I skip ahead to Route 213, where I can Pokeradar up a Swellow. Her name is Spewer, and she's great against fighting types. I'm not gonna lie, it took a long time for her to spawn. My strategy of only going for sparkly grass stopped working a long time ago, and I was afraid to acknowledge it. But now that I've said it out loud, it's real. Ideally, Maylene was going to be a very straightforward fight. Spewer was supposed to sweep her team with metronome boosted plucks, but her Metatite got an unfortunate crit with Fake Out. I'm really feeling those old crit rates in this game. So when Macho comes out, I leave it to Trudge to do the job with the Psychic TM that we got from gambling. Legally. And finally, against her Lucario, I would have liked to do something a little different and let Clown do the job, but all we could do was a single Fire Punch because their damage output is still so high. Mentalist gets to make her debut, but the damage is still so massive that I end up switching to Robe after all. Man, I knew she would be good, but I had no idea that she'd be this consistent. Well, Spewer, you sure did do it! Now let's go to Route 214 to encounter Shadow Child, the Poochyena. Bulbapedia says that these special encounters all have a 22% spawn rate, but the 30-minute hunt for every single encounter tells me otherwise. Also, I had just found out that all the way back on Route 211, east of Eterna City, I could have gotten a Tyrogue? I thought it was going to be on the part of the route opposite of Mount Coronet, but better late than never. I name him Hidden, and Hidden is cool because I get to choose between 3 evolutions for him. My decision was primarily dependent on his ability, which happens to be Steadfast. This is great because that means as a Hitmonchan, he'd have Iron Fist, as a Hitmonlee, Reckless, and as a Hitmontop, Technician. This puts me between Hitmonchan and Hitmontop. I think Hitmontop would absolutely be the way to go if he had Intimidate instead, but I like the idea of Iron Fist boosted Mach Punches a lot. It's actually pretty easy to get the evolution. Hitmonchan needs a higher defense over attack, and with only 2 attack IVs, that's pretty easy. And against even Barry's Staravia, oh, another crit. Alright, to be fair, Hidden was intimidated. Alrighty, Spewer, you could get the sweep. It's fine. Well, there goes our one single fighting type for the game. The next 2 gyms are gonna be just a little harder now. I could have technically led with Clown or Robe, but with the RNG like that, then, you know, what can you do? Rest in peace, Hidden. I was actually pretty excited to battle with you. Clown, Headman, and Robe can clean up as usual. And a defense drop? I'm starting to think following Platinum has some RNG changes. Something something bomb threat, something something let them get away. We battle Cyrus, he lacks the power of friendship, boop bop beep, we've got Surf. Surf may not bring back Hidden, but it can fill the void. Route 221 unlocks Chef's new bestie Reaper, the Nidorina, and Fuego Ironworks helps me find Banger the Aeron. Neither will be fully evolving yet, but they're both still pretty good. And possibly most importantly, back in the northern part of Route 210, Gnome the Bagon becomes available. I'm hoping that Gnome sticks to the landing of his destiny, because the endgame might be impossible otherwise. Now we continue our surfing adventure, and stumble into Barry. This time, he's a larger threat than he's ever been. But, so am I? Clown easily thunderbolts through Staraptor's double team. Rapidash is drowned by Trudge's new surf. Gnome unveils his new evolution to use Flamethrower, which we got from Veilstone. Spewer risks a miss with Fly to deal with Heracross. And finally, Headman dances Floatzel into smithereens. There you have it, hardest Barry fight until postgame. And yeah, we're at that part of the game, so Byron isn't too different. Mentalist actually one-shots his Magneton with Mud Slap, kinda sad actually. And Trudge picks up kills on the other two with Surf. What's great about getting past that fight is that we get a new level cap, and I get to get 3 really cool dinosaurs to reach their final forms. I delayed Chef and Reaper for the sake of some level up moves, specifically Poison Jab with Chef. Didn't really have a choice with Banger though. Team Galactic is regrettably sad for this portion, so I'll be skipping over them and head straight to the 7th gym leader. I'm sure it'll be fine if I leave them alone, they're harmless. The gym leader whose name has been lost to time is just as easy as I was expecting. I don't have any hard counters of my own, but again, we're at that part of the game. Just like last time, I've been bamboozled by my resources and prepared for the wrong lead. No matter though, because Banger at least hard counters this little gremlin. Piloswine then proves to be of little threat against my intended lead of Trudge. Let's go. But it is in fact a Bombasnow that makes things a little tricky. Her coverage is nothing to scoff at in a game like this, and after pivoting with Banger and his insane defensive stats, Robe comes in early and barely lives long enough to get the kill with a counter. She might be plateauing soon regarding how safe her switches will be, so I'm gonna keep an eye out for that. And now we're faced against the infamous Snowcloak Frostlass. With Robe being so low and also a psychic type, I'm fully expecting a Shadow Ball to come out. In this case, Shadow Child finally gets her big break. She may not have Intimidate, but a Dark typing and Psychic immunity can still go a long way. My bad, guys. I should have swapped differently. Rugrat the Smeargle was the only one in the box who wasn't weak to one of Frostlass's attacks. I wasn't thinking. Clown is my only real shot at this point, and she's off to a not-so-great start missing Fire Punch. Fortunately, Blizzard and Hail do just enough to activate our Citrus Berry, but we're still dead to a crit. But what are the odds, right? Honestly, a double team is perfectly fine because we only have to get lucky a couple of times. And Clown does exactly that. Fire Punch lands through the evasion boosts and inflicts burn. That chip damage all but negates their own Citrus Berry, and Clown holds on after one more Blizzard to even land the following Fire Punch. It's not enough on its own, but the burn finishes the job. Whew, just as easy as I was expecting. I don't mean to sound overconfident or anything, because by all means that has not been earned. But all of this Team Galactic stuff is mostly more of the same. About 6 Pokemon are cycled through every battle, including with the named characters. So once again, I'm gonna skip ahead to the final boss fight. Honestly, I don't think storming their base would really accomplish anything of importance anyways. But there's actually one last encounter that we can find exclusive to the Pokeradar. At the highest point in the Sinnoh region, in a location with immense historical importance, the stage for an intense climactic battle, this is the one and only place that I can catch Loudred. Her name is Bowtie, and Bowtie got crit. Actually, you know what? I lied. There is a slightly more interesting galactic fight, and it's the double battle where Barry helps me. Yes, their teams haven't changed at all, but credit where credit's due. Man, my Nintendo DS wasn't built for this. Of course, Cyrus is waiting for us at the middle of the Distortion world, and unfortunately for him, the next gym leader has a Pokemon at level 50, which means that Gnome can hit that level cap and fully evolve into an insane pseudo-legend specifically for this fight. Unfortunately, I'm still not quite in a position to one-shot every single member, but Chef leads strongly regardless. He may get burned, but Earth Power doesn't mind that at all and brings the Houndoom to the red. I mistakenly used the move again, so Honchkrow switches in for free. I guess the AI does that now. This is where Gnome can shine to not only weaken their physical moves with Intimidate, but also take a Psychic like a champ. From there, a Strength combined with a Fly seals the deal. Weavile is here and is obviously going for Ice Punch. That makes my decision fairly easy as I bring in Banger. But what do you know? The first Ice Punch lands the freeze. Banger then proceeds to be frozen for 6 whole turns, only surviving with the help of a Citrus Berry to thaw out on turn 7 and get the Yoko with Iron Head. I can't believe how close that was. Gyarados gets a little touchy, so I switch back to Gnome expecting an Earthquake, but instead we eat a Waterfall for some reason. It's fine though because the Intimidate weakened the hit. Now Trudge enters and should be able to outwall our opponent, but after the Psychic, I figured that yawning and slacking off for heals would be more beneficial. But it's actually Houndoom who ends up on the receiving end of the yawn. Chef returns to finish the job, but Cyrus simply heals. While they do fall asleep and Earth Power does massive damage yet again, the Burn Chip has put Chef in kill range. To cover for a possible wake up, Reaper makes her official debut and proves to be a little more specially bulky than Chef. We use Thunderbolt to cover for a switch, but they stay in and live the hit. Fortunately, we get the para because I do not know what I would have done otherwise. Gyarados is back, but with my safe pivoting, I get set up the strategy I was going for again, which lets Trudge finally take out the Gyarados. And without a Dark-type move, Crobat follows a few turns later. I'd really like to be able to plan these fights out with a little more regard to RNG, but given my limited pool of Pokemon, it really feels like I'm at the mercy of the game sometimes. I finally get access to Sunyshore City, and a quick walk gives me a nice little break to appreciate the smaller things in life. But I don't retain that lesson, and book it towards our very last gym challenge. And you'd probably think that it's a nice and easy sweep, but Chef can't even one-shot the Jolteon with Earth Power. Yikes. That Earthquake TM is looking mighty tempting right around now. But it's actually that dang Flabbit Electivire that gives me a run for my money. Chef is mega dead to a Giga Impact, so I give the field to Mentalist, whose best ground move is still Mud Slap. Psychic does surprising damage the next turn, but with the Fire Punch doing as much as it is, I make the call to switch to Banger, who gets burned turn 1. What is going on? Well, since I want to preserve him for Luxray if possible, I let Rope come in and do what she does best. But after she tanks the hit on the switch, Electivire misses 2 Thunder Punches in a row. That doesn't really change anything, but the game is just fully mocking me at this point. Eventually, we get the counter kill, and since Raichu can't do much in the face of Reaper, she shows us what she's got and takes us home. One of the Focus Blasts missing definitely helps out a lot, but because Luxray has Rivalry, his attacks are weaker against queens like Reaper. She powers through with a barrage of Earth Powers and doesn't flinch once. Well, the Citrus Berry helps a lot too. Victory Road proves to us that we're still playing the same game by a show of freeze hacks and scary random crits around every corner. But somehow, we make it through unscathed. Honestly, I've got a soft spot for Victory Roads from the older Pokemon games. I think they do a great job of building up to the final challenge of the Elite Four. But to be fair, I don't know how you do it in a modern game without making it feel like a pointless grind. Among the HM deletions and hard scale move reminders, as a final preparation, Gnome and I return to his homeland of Route 210 and approach the one and only settlement. This is where he learns the strongest move, Draco Meteor. I don't know if we'll end up using it, but I am taking this seriously. And I'm not the only one. Barry is guarding the Elite Four gate from the wrong side, and he won't let us by without one final stand. I mentioned how the previous fight was the scariest one until postgame, but it's clear to me that Barry means business. Instead of letting his Staraptor take the hit from Clown, he quickly U-turns out. Surprisingly, our static activates, but Barry's Torterra very safely absorbs Clown's Thunderbolt. I considered switching to Gnome right away for the Intimidate and Earthquake immunity, but I really didn't want him taking early damage before fighting Snorlax. So Robe takes the stage and eats the Stab Earthquake fairly well. From what I could tell, we should live a crunch, meaning a counter will do the trick as it always does. But instead, Robe gets attacked with Leaf Storm. Right at the 11th hour, Robe is stopped from going any further. And really? A Leaf Storm from a Torterra? Even with a crit, I wouldn't imagine a kill from this special attack stat. Man, I was stun-locked here for a good minute. Gnome enters after all, and this big guy has the audacity to live our fly on 1? Gnome gets the kill, but not without some unforeseen damage. Floatzel is obviously going for Ice Fang, so I pivot with Trudge to get Headman in to fight for the first time in a good minute. She's good to live 1 Ice Fang, barring a crit, and retaliates with our own murderous Leaf Storm. Rapidash is once again drowned by Surf, Spearow runs it back against Heracross, Clown finishes the job with the Staraptor, and then Snorlax finally appears. I don't know why, I feel like Barry always saves him for last, which isn't a thing in this game. Gnome switches back in on an Earthquake as planned, and his Crunch even lowers their defense. Thank goodness it did, because of course Gnome gets paralyzed by the subsequent Body Slam. The RNG in this run is crazy. Fortunately, Gnome eventually makes it all work out, and our final battle before the Elite Four is concluded. Leaf Storm from a Torterra? Man, something's up. Robe should have for sure lived that. She was a strong contender for helping out in the end here, and she proved her worth from the moment she joined the team. I'll never forget you, Robe. We're one more amazing Mon down, but the show must go on. I don't feel quite as overpowered as I did in runs of Christmas past, but nevertheless, I'll be entering the Elite Four with Chef, Trudge, Mentalist, Spewer, Banger, and Gnome. If I had any more deaths, including these 6 Pokemon, then the Elite Four may truly be impossible. But there's still a chance. Erin is someone who I've never really had trouble with in the past, and now with Spewer and her guts, metronome-boosted stab aerial aces, I thought that might be the case again. However, once the battle starts and we take out the Yanmega after burning a full restore of theirs, Erin wastes no time in sending out Drapion. I thought Heracross or Vespiquen would come out instead with the Rock-type moves, but Spewer must switch early. Banger, I hardly know her, fortunately walls anything and everything that Drapion can do here, and it's only a matter of time before they go down. A long time, mind you, but a time nevertheless. Now Gnome absorbs the Heracross's obvious close combat, so we outspeed and finish them off with his aerial ace. Because Vespiquen has Power Gem, it isn't safe to stay in. But Chef is generally confident in this matchup, and 2 Ice Beams do what we need them to do. And last is Scizor, but because Aron's Pokemon are so low leveled, Chef can Earth Power the final Pokemon without any worry. A fast Grass type into Bertha's team would mostly trivialize her, but I have Trudge and that's pretty much the same thing. He even gets access to Grass Knot, and uses it while the Wish Cache sets up Sandstorm. It doesn't take her out, so we dance around them with Yawn plus Slack Off, so that by the time we do take her out, Trudge is at full HP. Then by pushing forward full throttle, both Gliscor and Hippowdon get obliterated by Surf and Grass Knot respectively. Trudge is slow, however, so by the time Golem comes in, the damage and Sandstorm chip puts Trudge in a precarious position. There is exactly 1 roll of Thunder Punch and Earthquake that knocks out Trudge. I'd like to switch out and avoid that chance, along with a crit, but no one else is prepared to one-shot the Golem in return, and when they don't, Golem will have a pretty strong attack waiting. Well, except for Mentalist, but then I'd have to deal with the Rhyperior. And if Trudge could just sweep, then that'd be so much better. We stay in after all, and Golem outspeeds to land Thunder Punch, and Trudge holds on, healing off more damage than they do with Slack Off. We continue to heal back to full, and get ready to attack. Along the way, Trudge does get paralyzed, but what can you do? He finally lands the Grass Knot, bringing in the ace. We've actually retained a little more damage than I was hoping, and Megahorn will be way too much for my Anomaly. On the bright side, Rhyperior's moves are incredibly predictable. This makes it super easy for me to switch back and forth between Banger, who can eat any move except for Earthquake, and the intimidating Gnome, who can absorb Earthquakes. Eventually, the bipedal Rhino is neutered to oblivion, and Banger is safe to use Ice Punch, with Gnome finishing them off with Draco Meteor. At the end of the day, that was still a roll, and a crit would have ruined everything, so that was stressful. And hey, we get a break now because we've earned it. Gnome is a pretty significant and amazing capture, and Flint gets to bear the full force of that fact. I finally decided to use the Earthquake TM, and instead of giving it to one of my ground types, I gave it to Gnome. That's because he is so fast, and safely outspeeds each and every Pokemon on Flint's team to one-shot them. I kind of felt like a kid again, it was great. You know, I think I'm becoming a pretty big Salamence fan, as Lucian wasn't much different. His Mr. Mime is crunched before he can do anything, which brings in one of Lucian's 2 threatening Pokemon. Our Aerial Ace has about a 50-50 chance of one-shotting the Gallade, and we miss it, but their following Stone Edge isn't quite as close to getting the kill, so we pick it up ourselves the next turn. Espeon didn't stand a chance, I'm so sorry, and that brings in Bronzong. They've got Levitate, and their Steel typing makes Crunch neutral in this gen, so I'm switching to Mentalist finally. It turns into a war of attrition, as we spam Shadow Balls and they spam Psychic with the occasional Calm Mind. We stay afloat with the Shadow Balls getting the special defense drop once or twice, but because of their full restores, I end up switching to Trudge to yawn them and finish up the fight. Last is Alakazam, and the predictable Energy Ball makes perfect way for Gnome to return, and he barely lives the following Psychic before retaliating with one final crunch. Again, I would have liked to play around the crits if possible, but I don't think that was possible. Or at least, that's what I'm gonna say to a, it's not my fault. The final boss awaits, and we made it here with no deaths in the Elite Four. I was a little worried in Bertha's fight, but now that we're here, the team and I are ready to finish the job. But also because I've been here before, I'm not so oblivious to the fact that victory won't be obtainable without sacrifice. Our eyes are on the prize, whatever it takes. They all leave their Pokeballs? I actually didn't know that. I legit got goosebumps, don't tell anyone. Spewer will be leading this fight against Cynthia's Spiritomb. I want to get as much damage off as I can with U-turn before Chef comes in to take their attacks. With our handy choice specs from Salacion Town, Spiritomb is put in the red, well, we are as well. A full restore is obvious, so by keeping the pressure on, Spiritomb is taken out by 2 more Earth Powers. Milotic switches in early, and while I did say that sacrifice will be necessary, Chef is relatively fast, and my starter, so Trudge enters in on an Ice Beam to bait Dragon Pulse. This puts Banger in a pretty good position to absorb the resisted hit and get at least 1 Stone Edge off after the Milotic uses Surf. Oh. The damage calc said we lived that. Huh. You've earned a nice long rest, Banger, but we haven't yet. Keeping up the pace, I send in Spewer to do extra U-turn damage and bring back Trudge. Between Yawn and Slack Off, he really was safe to stay in the whole time. My plan was to save his health and power points for the Togekiss, but the change of plans eventually leads to Milotic falling to several Surfs, followed by a return of Spewer while she's asleep to use Return. Now Togekiss enters, and Guts boosted, Metronome boosted, Stab boosted, Max Friendship boosted Return is one of the best moves we can do. One won't finish off this egg plane, but we should live a single Shockwave to land another and... oh. Poison was enough to take out Spewer. Alright. Chef outspeeds in this matchup, and most of Cynthia's Pokemon actually, so he's completely safe to switch in and get the kill with Ice Beam. And that brings in Garchomp. Chef is so low that technically we bait a random move. I would assume it's Earthquake since it's super effective, but when Gnome tags in and intimidates Garchomp, they randomly chose and land Dragon Rush. Cool. Just like with Aerial Ace against Gallade, we outspeed and Draco Meteor is a 50-50 on if it kills. We could also miss, but if Garchomp doesn't go down this very turn, then the rest of the fight will be way harder than I imagined. And Gnome gets the kill. Let's go! The scenario is the exact same against Lucario, except with Earthquake. We have no choice but to run it back and send it, and Gnome's luck runs out, as we lose the 50-50, and Lucario lands the Stone Edge that easily eviscerates my only pseudo-legend. Genuinely, I don't think I could have won this without Gnome's contributions. GG's, big guy. Believe it or not, Chef is able to outspeed Lucario as well, but extreme speed negates any hope for him. We're back to Trudge, and what do you know? Surf is strong enough to take them out in 2 hits. But not before we take nasty damage from Shadow Ball. Oh cool, a special defense drop too. I don't have a lot of options versus the Roserade. I'm hoping for a throw of some sort, even if it's Cynthia. And she goes for Sludge Bomb? Oh, well, I don't know if the crit mattered, rest in peace. But Mentalist enters once again. I'm not too sure why, maybe because they didn't see the Oko, but Roserade sets up a Toxic. Mentalist gets a free turn of Psychic, and the following Energy Ball doesn't even take out my Ancient Owl Dreidel. Another Psychic easily finishes off Roserade, and helps us barely skate by and defeat not only Champion Cynthia, but also the entire game. Even though I'll be leaving this room with less friends than when I entered it, I could still feel their spirits supporting me, Chef, and Mentalist all the way to the end. As I approach the champion registration, memories of my journey come flowing back to me. It wasn't just me who got to this point. Every single Pokemon along the way made this possible. Chef and I in particular have been in a similar spot that we are in now, at the very beginning of the journey when we lost Apex and Upscream. But now it's a little bit easier because we are not alone. Guys, when the team appeared in front of Cynthia, and when they all walked into the champion room, I audibly gasped. Moments like that pull a lot of weight for making the run feel real, and honestly, I don't think I'll play Platinum again without this add-on. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today. I'm still trying to get as many of these videos out as possible, but as for now, I don't know if I'll have the same pace as I did before. When I was uploading like every 2 weeks, that was crazy. Thank you all for your patience and continued support. Also, don't forget to like or subscribe if you haven't already. If you wanna. But that's all I've got for you today. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.